Well, at this point of the Broadcasters Podcast, I have to say this might be the biggest high-profile guest I've had on the program. And I'm really excited about this guest because I want to talk about a role model, an example for those networks that are out there. Anybody doing content, established or digital, talk about somebody that created some groundbreaking programming by the way of entertainment television. And the person I'm talking about is Larry Namer. He's an entertainment industry veteran with over 45 years professionally in cable television, live events, and new media. One of the founders of co-founders of Entertainment Television, company now valued $3.5 billion, worldwide, seen by hundreds of millions of cable subscribers around the world. And also, after creating several other successful companies in the United States, after took his focus overseas. He's now the founding partner of Metan Global Entertainment Group, a venture created to develop and distribute entertainment content and media specifically for Chinese-speaking audiences in China and abroad. Larry, thank you so much for being on with me.
Yeah, my pleasure. No problem.
Wow. I'll tell you, when I look back, I remember watching as a wee little lad back in the late 80s when I first got cable. And I remember back when it was called Movie Time. I remember that I used to watch that channel. I thought it was fascinating. Along all the other channels that we had, especially with the narrowcast, they only had 36 channels at that time and only grew to 60 at some point, right around 90, I guess it was. And I remember you used to air movie trailers, entertainment news, events and awards coverage, interviews. And then I look at the list of people, and I forgot who you had on the network at the time. Some of the people that you had on are really great presenters today and have had great careers of their own. Greg Kinnear, Paula Abdul, Julie Moran, and Mark DiCarlo. Watch all of them. Talk to me, Larry, about how you gathered all this promising talent, or your team got this talent together, and how, as it is written in your LinkedIn profile, you said, quote, created the business, raised the money, started and operated this global TV network with your partner, Alan Mrovka.
Yeah, it was quite interesting. You know, Alan and I came up with the idea. I've been in the cable business since I got out of college, and then the opportunity came up. I had built a big cable system out in Los Angeles, working for someone else.
Right.
They decided to go back to Canada, and I wasn't, going to go from New York to LA to move to Toronto. So Alan and I just kept toying with ideas. And at that time, everybody said cable TV is an electronic newspaper. And, CNN was the headline, ESPN was the sports, and
right.
Home shopping was the classified. And what was obviously missing was the entertainment pages, which was the second most read section of any newspaper. And we wrote a plan, and everybody said, "Oh, this is a great idea, but you're not Rupert Murdoch or Ted Turner, so you can't start a TV network. It's impossible. People don't wake up and start TV networks." And at that time, MSNBC and those kind of channels were just coming out, and the range for getting those off the ground was anywhere between $60 and $100 million.
Oh my God!
And nobody was going to give that to Alan and I. So we found a group on Wall Street that was willing to give us $2 million.
There you go.
And we said, boy, we got to be creative to figure out how we're going to build this company with $2 million. And so a lot of things we had to do were out of necessity, which was really refreshing in television because we weren't a lot of special effects, and we just really focused on what the audience was looking for and what we thought was important. And we realized that because we don't really have the money to do like a lot of fancy program, the most important thing we can do is pick great hosts. And, I kind of likened it to the Mickey Mouse Club. When I was a kid, I used to come home and I used to turn the Mickey Mouse Club on. I didn't know what was going to be on, but I knew I loved spending time with those kids on the show.
Right. And
so we kind of used that same thinking, and we said we're going to put all our money into host selection. And, people don't realize, people say, oh, you were so lucky you got those great hosts. Well, we put 7,200 people on tape to pick those great hosts. So it was an incredible process. All the resources we had went into that. And, Richard Blade was part of it, and Hal Sparks, and Greg Kinnear, obviously, and Julie Moran. And
now, talk to me about why you decided to go and take that big of a swath and go after that many people that were auditioning. You never had, and you took the time to go ahead and have people just go through, send their tapes in, or they actually auditioned on set, I guess.
They actually auditioned on set. There's a woman named Eileen Graham who was in charge of the casting, and we would just send people in. People send tapes or resumes, and then we picked out of that. I think we had over 12,000 selections.
Oh my God!
And we ended up putting 7,200 on tape, and to pick the first 5, and some of them. Greg Kinnear. Every girl in the country was like, "Oh, he's so vulnerable when he makes a mistake," and he would make a bunch of mistakes because this was all new to him, and as well as it was to us. And they go, when he rolls his eyebrows, he's the cutest guy we've ever seen. And I'm sitting there going, because we don't have money to retape him, he's going to become a star. Yeah. And sure enough, he did. And, and then you had people, like Mark DiCarlo who went on to do Studs, and
that was great.
First taste of mixed things. I would get letters, half of which were loving them and half of which were hating them. But people felt something.
Yeah.
And, we didn't care if they would join us and watch because they didn't like Mark or they loved Mark. It made no difference to us as long as they watched.
And by the way, 30 years later, they're all actively working right now. Greg Kinnear, great movie career. Julie Moran, I see on QVC, are doing cosmetic lines and things like that. Mark DiCarlo's in a Progressive commercial that I laugh at all the time. It's great.
Yeah.
I mean, but also...
They've all done well. Richard Blade, had his great career at K-Rock, and he did a bunch of VH1, and, it was just... it was a great place to be because it really needed to be innovative.
Now, quick question.
People just loved the fact that it was very pirate.
And that's the whole point. Why is it, even in this setup, what has gone on now where I would think that some of that kind of talent now, at their time, you could inject them into today, and I think they would still blend in and be relatable. Why is it that we can't find presenters like that anymore? What happened?
I don't know. One of the ones we didn't mention was Katie Wagner. Katie went on to do Lifestyles of the Rich and Famous.
Yes.
And Julie Moran did, was the first woman to do Wide World of Sports, and
right.
did Entertainment Tonight. A lot of it is just putting the time in, realizing what's important. And, to us, the hosts were the most important. So we just focused on it. And we realized that, our success or failure was going to be based on those choices. And we just made it happen. People now just think there's shortcuts. I watch a lot of stuff, and don't get me wrong. I watch, the stuff that's on TV now, and I'm amazed at the quality of the writing and the acting and stuff. When it comes to host-driven things, I think people have just lost sight of the fact of how important these hosts really are.
Totally. Now, lots of big changes started off as in the 90s. E became a major player. You obviously made the change to the E channel, and that was thanks to, first of all, HBO offering to bankroll the channel. Thank you, HBO. And the programming assist of somebody that I'm telling you, wow, the people you had on board, even on the back end, Lee Masters. He did masterful work in the heydays of MTV, and I miss the days of MTV like that. Not because I'm some kind of nostalgic kind of person, but groundbreaking programming. On MTV, he did Club MTV and Remote Control. Then mainstay programming comes to E! Channel with Talk Soup and E! News. And I love Talk Soup. I loved it. And so talk to me about the transition of movie time to E! and this jump into original programming, because it was really just out there. Really, it caught my surprise, caught my attention really good.
Yeah, well, again, a lot of stuff was, of course, it was out of necessity because we didn't have a lot of money. HBO and some cable operators, did come in. And, we realized when we were doing movie time, we were actually covering cable programming and other programming. We were covering music, and, people like Paula Abdul would come in and say, hey, I got a new music video. And you go, yeah, all right, Paula, And so we realized we needed to change the name. So E was not so much a change in what the programming was, but it was a change so that the audience would understand the broader nature of what was going to be covered on the channel. And, Talk Soup was really a program that was in development while Movie Time was there, and it was being created specifically for Greg because we thought Greg had this incredible ability to improvise. And
snarky.
So
he was snarky. That's what I feel like.
And, so that, and, but the whole thing was always meant to be, kind of this irreverent, very pirate, very inside look at Hollywood. And I mean, the first time we ever covered the Academy Awards, we actually did it as Movie Time. Yes. And it was crazy because we couldn't get press credentials, and it was downtown at the Shrine, I think. And,
right.
Our guys climbed over the fence. I mean, we literally threw the camera equipment over the fence, and we climbed over in order to cover it. That was our first red carpet coverage.
Oh, my God. It's like paparazzi. That's great. Now, here's the other thing I got to ask. That's right. It's the approach to the programming, because obviously Hollywood is a beast to tame, and to come in with a new product like this and say, okay, we're going to help you, but we're going to do it a certain way that's going to make you feel great. So the approach to programming was to provide celebrities with significant exposure, but in a way they could control. Thus, the audience would get to see their celebrities in action, maintain a certain amount of control over their exposure to the public. So talk to me about this strategy of control publicity, how Hollywood entered to support this great idea of yours without screwing it up. Because there's other shows that were out there beforehand, but you guys did it in a different way.
Yeah, we did. We kind of went back and forth. The first person who really believed in us was a woman named T.G. Wilkerson Cassell, who owned the Hollywood Reporter.
Okay.
And, while we had no money, T.G. said, look, give me some stock and I'll let you advertise in the magazine whenever you need it. And, we would, because I came out of the cable industry, I knew a lot of the people at the cable system, so I'd get like the cable system to say, yes, we'll carry it. And then we'd take an ad in the Hollywood Reporter saying, we're proud to have, so-and-so cable of Syracuse, join the Movie Time family. And then all the studios would see it. And then, Universal would call up and go, tell us about that. What is this? And it was also very funny because one of our strategies, and again, being very pirate, was to just come out and attack MTV. And, we would go, the M is really stands for Mom's TV, because by that time MTV was a decade old, and,
right.
Its demographic had grown older. And, it drew such outrage from the people at MTV that they would go around and tell people, now, don't you carry this Movie Time thing? And people go, well, Movie Time, what's that? And they would call us. They go, we heard about you guys, and we'd go out and pitch them. And and because we covered a lot of what was going to cable, and we really did research to show that when a movie was out in the movie theater, just the sheer name recognition of the movie helped that movie when it went into a pay TV window. Just because you heard of a movie didn't mean you could go to the movies, had a family, had a job and stuff, and you'd watch it on HBO. So the retention, so we showed cable operators how it actually helped their basic business. And it wasn't driving people into the movie theater, which at first people, kind of feared. So we just kept going back and forth with ads on the Hollywood Reporter, and Universal was really the first studio that made a major commitment to us. They just saw it and they said, hey, look, why don't you start covering the movies while we're making them?
Yes.
And we go, yeah, sure. So we would go on the set and interview people and do behind the scenes and all of that stuff, which was all fresh and original. And we could give a movie, more than the 10 seconds that it would get on Entertainment Tonight. We could do an in-depth look at, how the music for this movie came about, interview the conductors. And so it really became, the movie lovers or entertainment lovers' dream, because they really got to dig in and look from the inside. And, and then because we had no money, and again, we had to do stuff, we eventually got most of the studios to cooperate with us, and they would give us, their trailers, and they'd send crews on, their movie sets and give us the footage and all that. But there was one studio I think I remember correctly. I think it was Paramount who wouldn't do that. And, when we actually had Greg Kinnear, we'd do a top 10 countdown. We'd go, the number 9 movie of the week was so-and-so and so-and-so. Disney, the number 8 was this. And they go, number 7, some movie from a studio that starts with a P. We don't know what it is. And we move on to number 6 until somebody from Paramount was infuriated, like the president, and go, why are these people making fun of us every day? And told the marketing people, said, look, I don't want to see this anymore. Just figure out how you work with these guys. And we ended up having all the studios working with us.
Oh, that's great. You know what? And I love that your team actually had the kind of the fuck you mentality, basically, to go after these people. And they called out on their shit. I love that. That is fantastic. Yeah. That's a great attitude to have.
Again, because we had very little money, we had to think of time to do it. So we only had, when we started, 11 employees. But a friend of mine who was teaching radio, television, film at University of Texas in Austin sent us like 30 interns. So we actually started with 11 employees and 30 interns.
Now, several times you said didn't have the money. I think I've already counted like 6 times you said that in this interview. But I want to tell you why that's so important. This is the question I wanted to ask you more than anything. First of all, I got to get some context to the audience here. The way the channel created new groundbreaking programming while keeping it on a tight budget. And for Netflix and Hulu and all these other over-the-top services and cable, by God, learn from this man, learn from this channel. This is amazing. So first off, one of the things you did was, I think it was 94, I think it was, you signed Howard Stern to do a video version of the radio show. Convinced him to join, got video cameras in the studio, first of its kind. Everybody that's doing YouTube shows now, they learned off of this model, okay? And then you got them to tape the show. You got all Stern's antics on and off the air, 90 minutes of programming a day, $33,000 an episode. Incredible. And then within a few months, one of the hottest rated shows on cable TV. Then Talk Soup, which, like I said, I mean, I think the legacy of a lot of your programming, I just think, honestly, across entertainment, that programming has stayed strong since the longevity's been there because they've made some good decisions. I must say that. And
it was very genuine, and, yes. People recognize that.
So, Talk Soup, another great idea. So then, the network talk shows gave you clips of the shows free of charge. Please help me, clear me up if I'm saying anything out of context here. In exchange for promoting the next day's programming, the free material, which was the cost of a 30-minute production of Talk Soup, was only $10,000 an episode, $20,000 to $30,000 less than the clips those shows were giving to you. And then you had advertisers, that paid approximately $1,000 for a 30-second ad on a slot on the show. Then the show would make $20,000 per show. You ran the show 260 times a year, made $5 million a year off that show every year. That's amazing. Are you surprised that E's not the blueprint that other media companies should follow today when it comes to creative and cost-effective content?
Well, I think, the times have changed. I mean, if today, I wouldn't start a linear TV network at all.
Right.
Back then we were in the analog days, and, people had to watch what you wanted them to watch, when you wanted them to watch and stuff. I love nonlinear, and I love giving the audience choices and stuff. Yeah. So, very different. But, again, some of the stuff we did was we celebrated celebrity. We embraced celebrity. Some of the first people ever to get on as guest hosts, people like Paula Abdul, the Wayans brothers, before anybody knew who they were. Yeah. Because we had the studio, and literally all we had to do on the air was turn the lights on. Somebody would come in and say, David Allen Greer would go, "Oh, I can host." We go, "Okay, great, let's come to the studio," and we'd literally just light it up, and it was so impromptu, and you never knew, and it kind of had that, I always use the analogy, Mickey Mouse Club. It had that Mickey Mouse feeling. People say, I don't know what those crazy people are going to do today, but I want to see it. And, and then we kind of embrace celebrities in a way that they would never really embrace before. I mean, the most famous story was we tried to get Jack Lemmon on, way back in the very early days, and they said, no, Jack doesn't do interviews and stuff like that. I said, what do you mean he doesn't do interviews? What does he do? They said, well, now he kind of stays home. He loves playing the piano. I said, okay, great. I'll bring a piano on the set. Jack could come in 1 hour. He could do nothing but play the piano. They go, what do you mean? He doesn't have to talk? And I said, doesn't have to say a word. And they go, and you could guarantee that? I said, absolutely. He just plays the piano and then he could go home. And they said, what? He probably liked that. So we actually did it. And he started playing, and then looked around, and nobody bothered him. He just was talking about how he loved the piano, and Then kind of about 20 minutes in, he just felt so comfortable, he just started talking. And he gave us one of the greatest interviews ever. And, then everybody in town was amazed. They're going, how in the world did you get Jack Lemmon to come on and talk like that?
Amazing.
Because he won't do anything tonight. He won't do anything. But how did you do it? And he stayed for like an hour just talking. And that kind of opened the eyes of every manager in town, and they realized how friendly we could be, because we really just approached it and said, okay, when you have Terminator, Arnold Schwarzenegger in Terminator, you're going to get your share of publicity. But we would talk to these guys and say, look, what are you going to do when you have Jaws 5? You help us with Arnold, and we'll help you with Jaws 5. And they began to realize that it was just this fabulous tool for them to, promote and celebrate, the people in the business. So at all levels, from the people in front of the camera, we covered directors and composers and all of that stuff.
Amazing. Because of all the, and I must say, and we're going to move on to what you were doing with Metan, but just the legacy of E, and just the fact that, for however your presence is with the channel now and what's been going on since, of everything that's been done, I think E Entertainment has done the best job on the reality shows, which I'm not the biggest fan of, but I've watched quite a few of the ones on your channel that were fantastic. It was always at the right time as well. I think that was always what it was done. So at the right time, the right shows came on, and because of the relationships you had started so early on, the reputation behooves E, and that's why they could do everything that they did, which was amazing. I can't even think of how many hours I've watched the channel, but thank you, and thank Alan for putting this show together. It was a amazing idea. And then you decided to transition. So now, besides your work in China, let's go into Metan. Since 2008, you founded Metan Media Entertainment Group. You've been developing and distributing entertainment content media specifically for the Chinese market. Flagship series, Hello Hollywood. Check this out. Weekly entertainment series streams on Tudu, which is the biggest Chinese streaming video company out there. Then you have cinema chains that have been, for the movies that you're doing for the market, the reason why you're in that market is because the movie market is huge. In the past year, 9,300 screens have been added in China. And to give a comparison, the Avengers Endgame, which ran everywhere, ran in 4,600 theaters. Talk to me about how much China loves its Hollywood feature films.
Yeah, and again, kind of funny because we decided to go into China, about 10 years ago. And to us, it just kind of looked inevitable that China was going to come, either if not the number one, it's certainly the number two movie market in the world, because the economy was growing so quick and people with money could afford to go to the movies and all of that stuff. And so, we started the company, but the first show was Hello Hollywood, and, which was barely done in Mandarin. But really geared to, done in Mandarin language and geared to the Chinese audience. So when you interviewed people, it was like, what does the Chinese audience want to know about Tom Cruise versus what the American audience wants to know, which are very different, much less salacious gossip and,
right.
Much more, what do you do with your kids on the weekend kind of stuff.
Uh-huh.
And, we just, when I would call publicists and, say, hey, you guys know me from me and that, and I need to get on the red carpet for this, they would look at me and go, well, Larry, why would we care about China? And I'm like, no, guys, you don't understand. It's going to be huge. And they're going, yeah, all right, when it's huge, call us back. And we had the hardest time getting to cover stuff. Now, of course, they fight to get coverage on, the things we do in China, because China's turning out huge box office numbers. And what's different about China is they love Hollywood, but they also love stuff that comes out of their own country. If you look at the music world, we think that the music world is all U.S. driven, and maybe there's a few Brits that you throw in there. The Chinese, they love K-pop, out of Korea. They love
right.
K-pop out of Japan. They've now developed, China pop. And then U.S. pop, but U.S. pop is probably 30 or 40% as opposed to 80 or 90%.
Right.
And the same kind of holds true for movies now. They're fascinated by the new stuff coming out of, the China film industry. American television shows get on the digital platforms, so shows like Gossip Girl, have been phenomenal there. Game of Thrones did well in China. And so there's an appetite for English language things there. It's all on digital platforms as opposed to broadcast, which is fine because everybody under 35 in China consumes media on their laptop or their cell phone. They don't watch television sets the way,
right.
we still do. And, so it's just grown. I mean, I think IMAX is opening three IMAXs a week in China, which is, I don't know how to do it. How could you open 3 a week? And it's now, I think China's IMAX market is bigger than the U.S. IMAX market. So, it's all the things we kind of thought a dozen years ago, 10 years ago, all seem to be coming true. You had this rush to co-production and people were just not getting it. They just thought you could force Chinese elements into U.S. films and you'd, automatically have success. And they had, silly things like putting Chinese milk in Iron Man, really somebody's going to believe Iron Man is Chinese milk. But it's starting to level out, and creativity and sanity of, kind of broken into the office. I mean, Wandering Earth did really well, and it was a Chinese production. And, I have problems with the storytelling quality there. I didn't think it was good. But, you look at the effects and, stuff like that, and you realize what can be, when the creative process matures a little bit there.
Now, I wanted to talk about the fact that you've been, developing and distributing, but we're going to talk a little bit about the content that you're now creating. So, from one way to going around now providing the content. So, besides your work in China, you've also worked to bring Western entertainment to the former Soviet Union, and very early on, you were the primary consultant to Microsoft for the development of interactive TV. God, how long ago was that? What was that? What was it that brought you ahead of the game with interactive TV, which would definitely be the precursor to what Netflix and Hulu are today? You were ahead of the game there.
Yeah, we were, going back to 1995.
Yeah.
You kind of had the big rush. Everybody was talking about the digital world was coming, and you're going to have, 1,000 channels and stuff like that. And, this is when the internet was beginning to really, take shape. And, on one hand, you had John Malone from TCI telling, Bill Gates going, Bill, follow me, we'll show you the future. And then you had Jeff Bewkes from Time Warner going, no, don't listen to him, follow me, we'll show you the future. Rupert Murdoch saying, those guys don't know what they're talking about, follow me, we'll show you the future. So, what happened to Microsoft, they decided that they just wanted to get someone to, work with them who understood how you play that big media game, but really didn't have anybody's corporate agenda at heart and was just going to, whether right or wrong, was just going to tell them what they thought Microsoft should be doing. It was kind of weird for me because, you're sitting in your office and one day you get a call and they go, Bill Gates' office on the line for you. I'm going, yeah, all right, which one of my friends is this? And, sure enough, it was somebody from Microsoft, and they said, we need someone to, kind of help us think all these issues through, and, you do it. And I was like, wow, I get to learn technology to a level that most people in Hollywood never get to do it. And, to work with the top computer scientists in the world and stuff. So I did it for 2 years. And, they loved me because, again, I wasn't beholden to anybody's political agenda. And I have a big mouth. I don't care about it. If Rupert likes me, I don't care, but then I decided after 2 years I didn't want to get too beholden to Microsoft's agenda. And I wanted to still be Switzerland. I wanted to be neutral when it came to, what technology to apply.
And I can imagine that, and to invest the time and the money into it at that point was probably too soon, because we see how long it took to get to where we are now with streaming, because we had to wait for the technology on how to stream it out and to have, the move from dial-up to DSL happen so that we could get to this point. And then the same thing with mobile phones, to move the smartphone, to move to 4G, 5G technology. We had to get there so that all this equipment could work. That's what I would imagine would be.
Yeah, I mean, when we were doing this, we initially started, it was still an analog world.
Yeah.
And everything was clunky. It was we were experimenting with things like web TV and with dial-up lines, so it was incredibly clunky. But we really were more concerned with answering this question: what does the consumer want to do with this interactivity? There's all this capability, and then you had to add the words "if anything," because we weren't convinced that everybody wants to interact with TV. And I think what we found was that most of the time people didn't want to interact with TV, but over time, every single person of every age group wanted to have a deeper, richer relationship with the program that they're watching, and stuff. But it had to be totally optional, and you had to be able to opt in and out of it, and most of the time just sit back on the couch and have a beer and let it wash over you. And that's kind of, I think, what's happened today for the television world, the Netflix world. And we were doing back then, we did 250 episodes, interactive episodes of Judge Judy. And the reason we chose Judge Judy was because it skewed older female. And we said, you know what, we know what our kids are going to do, but let's see if there's a way to attract, kind of older audiences that weren't so computer savvy and whatever. And, we found that, older people found a comfort in being able to chat with other people watching the same program. And we had some shopping to buy Judge Judy's book and stuff like that. And now here you are, 20 some odd years later, and NBC announces, we've got a great new concept. We're going to introduce TV shopping into our programs, where you can click on and buy something. And we're going, really, not exactly the latest in innovation.
Well, they all tried this because it was the thought, but look, we're using technology, we're doing this and that. It's just, but I mean, I like where there were, again, Microsoft in some cases, that's the times where they do well on some of their technology. But then again, it's like they have the money to start doing the R&D, but they probably won't get the product all the way to developed into an actual product that might get a full support or get a whole lot of distribution. That can happen, but the effort was there, and that was still, there was still important work that was being done nevertheless. Let me get back to
that was kind of given away. And, part of the thing that I discovered while I was there, and I love working with like all these young computer geniuses and stuff, because I really began to understand what was possible and kind of how you could apply some of that stuff to the underlying business, the fundamentals of the TV business and how to make it work. But, a lot of it came down to corporate culture. When you're in big companies that are tech companies like Microsoft, they tend to only like to work with people that are kind of like them. So you couldn't figure out how could you mix really out there creatives with the incredibly disciplined computer scientists. Just that's not going to work. There's got to be a different way of promoting this. And, that's kind of the way things evolved. All the innovation, on the content side is happening out of the big companies, and then they invest in them or buy them up or whatever.
Wow. Now, just so I want to ask one other thing. I don't know if you it's interesting because one of the things I do on the side here, besides what I do full time, these independent podcasts I do on my own little hobby. One of the things I do is a wrestling podcast, and I noticed just an off question that I noticed someone else that was a large entrepreneur from WWE, the son of Vince McMahon, decided to go ahead and work on the same idea where he worked in China, working on on-demand, low-cost entertainment industry partnerships in the Chinese market. He worked for a company called You On Demand. Was there any kind of connection where you worked with any company like his at any point with content?
We knew of them, but no, we didn't work with them.
Okay. Just not a question. Some of my wrestling listeners might be tuning over to this side. I wanted to ask that question. But now, here's an interesting story, which I want to just make mention. When I read about this, I was like, wow. The risk, because you went to China and Russia. It's not like necessarily a vacation country, okay? But you told a story about how, quote, you got thrown on the hood of a car and had machine guns against your head. And this was describing a potentially fatal incident in Russia where you had been arrested for being the suspected assassin of a Georgian diplomat, explaining, quote, they realized my Brooklyn accent did not exactly match the description of a Georgian assassin and let me out pretty quickly. End quote. What made you decide to take the chance at providing Western entertainment? Risky but very important, and also a lot of profit if you go in there to markets like China and Russia. Who
Yeah, well,
taking the
again,
gamble.
you kind of looked at it and you knew that, they were going to be emerging markets, I mean, sans the politics, of course. We started in there, we knew that, things were changing and, there was a whole new world coming up there. So we started doing some TV distribution and we're pretty successful at it. And and then, I had gone from my hotel to go visit someone, and when I got out of the car, the next thing I know, I was thrown on the hood of this car, and like Kalashnikovs pointed at my head, and they're screaming at me and Russian, and and I'm there with the Brooklyn accent, going, "What the hell is this?" And they're looking at me, and finally, some lieutenant comes over, and he goes, "You're not Georgian, are you?" Or they thought I was Armenian, and I go, "No, why?" They go, "Oh, maybe we made a mistake." I go, "You think so?" But it was pretty quick, but when pretty scary and stuff like that. But the market was in flux, and again, for someone like myself who chooses to be an independent, I mean, I don't want to go work for Warner Studios or Fox or any of those. So you look for places where you could be as much on equal footing with the Rupert Murdochs of the world as possible. And in places like Russia and in China, being Rupert Murdoch was actually a negative, because they were very suspicious of the big Western media moguls and what their, if they had any political, agendas and stuff like that. So they actually liked working with smaller independents like myself.
Yeah.
So it's a great place to be if you're going to be an independent, is to go where, I had as many shows on television in China as Fox did. I mean, where else are you going to have that kind of situation?
And I'll tell you what, I understand that thought process. I mean, from an entrepreneurial side, Hollywood definitely was making a change. We see what Hollywood looks like today. And, I mean, I'm sure you probably hear stories now of the ongoing social, cultural conformity that's going on in Hollywood where, I mean, there's feigned outrage everywhere, the Me Too movement, all these things that are going on. I mean, could you ever imagine if you would have stayed in that environment trying to do what you do now and having to deal with all these new things that are coming about that I feel like it's just almost a cancer that's just spreading across all of Hollywood?
Yeah, it's pretty disheartening in many ways. I mean, when you get to the Me Too movement, being a single guy in LA these days has become almost impossible. I mean, you don't know, if you ask a girl out, how, if you just want to take her to dinner, how she's going to take it, or, think that you're using your position in the industry and stuff like that. So, social situations have become impossible. I mean, I just pretty much have become a hermit in LA. I invite friends over for dinner, and I don't go to many things unless, if it's a charity kind of event, I'll go to, or if it's a friend that, says, "Larry, could you please show up? It'll help me out getting other people to attend." I'll do it. But, it's changed the whole social scheme here and stuff where, what used to be the norms have changed. And, well, quite honestly, I think a lot of the fun has kind of come out of it. I mean, when I started in production, you'd work 16 hours a day and guys and girls would be together. And then, after your day, you go for drinks and you kid with each other and stuff. That's gone. You can't do that anymore because you never know when somebody's going to take offense to it. Everybody's like hypersensitive now. That's why being out of the country has been, pretty good, because you don't really have it the same way as you have here. I mean, again, I've always been very cautious on how I approach that stuff, but I'm much more relaxed in Russia or China these days than I am in Hollywood.
I can relate. I don't have any kids, no marriage. I'm a workaholic, and all I do is just work on projects. Just to, the hustle never stops for me. I can understand it, and I completely relate with the fact that, just to socialize these days in some kind of an intimate, romantic level, it just can't happen. So it's better off to go somewhere else where that culture's not here. It's just, somewhere where it's a little more old fashioned. You could still meet people, and people will still, if they like you, they're attracted to you, we get along, we go out, everything's great. But that doesn't happen now. And, probably some things need to happen. Maybe a generation change might need to happen before all this gets subsided. But I totally get where you're coming from there.
Yeah, I mean, don't get me wrong. I mean, things, the Harvey Weinstein stories.
Yeah.
Those are around for a long time, and quite honestly, those kind of things are horrible and never should exist. And if people would have come to the the forefront sooner, it probably could have stopped sooner and protected other people from being abused and stuff. And that stuff absolutely did go on. I mean, and stuff like that. But it kind of started the pendulum, and I think maybe the pendulum has swung a little bit too far. And it'll come back to. I'm confident that it'll come back to normal. Yeah. It's just going to take a while.
Agreed. It's a matter of these kind of things that are going on. It was with Harvey. It's a power struggle, and you cannot have that kind of power these days without anybody wanting to. Because it's now the culture is, not only are we going to hurt you, we want to take you down and destroy you. It's that kind of culture today. But also the one thing, just to give the point. When it comes to that story, it's a matter of, you let power get to your head. And, if you wanted to do whatever you want to do behind closed doors, somebody that's a willing and consenting participant. I mean, and why are you doing it yourself? Well, I mean, some of these stories I hear about that where, you have handlers, you have people that can provide whatever you need. You can spend money and then do it the right way. My God, why is it that hard to think about? But I think just some people, they just think, I'm Teflon. I won't be hurt by anything I could do. But that's what it was. And I just feel like, there was a reason for some of this purge to come out, but there's a lot of people, and I'm not blaming any women. I just think that in general, some of this is being taken the wrong way, and it's being taken advantage of, and it hurts any victim, male or female. That's the absolute truth. And not, like you said, this has got to correct itself. Hopefully it will. I don't know.
Yeah, I think it will. I mean, look, there's, the times and the stories that I used to hear, were absolutely horrible. But, girls would come to me and complain. I'd say, listen, I can't go to the police. You guys, you have to come out and, take them. Oh, but I don't want to do that because I'll never work again and stuff. But it took a while and took a few very brave souls to, come out and expose it. And, a bunch of people that should have been, exposed, I think were. I think, there's probably some that maybe didn't deserve to be exposed. But again, I think it all comes back to the middle at some point. I think it'll normalize.
Yeah.
It's just going to take some time because the abuses were so, out there and stuff, and they were so prevalent. And, and people began to get in the business and say, well, if Harvey could do that, then I could do that stuff. And,
right.
I would just cringe because I'm so, I came from very strict parents, they were immigrants. And, you had to have absolute, if I said a bad word to my sister, I'd get smacked in the head. So I kind of come from the opposite end of the spectrum when it comes to that stuff.
Well, see, and the thing is, exactly. It's moral. It's a moral factor. And I'll tell you what, there's more important things to be worried about and feigning outrage over, which is the Writers Guild and the talent agents fighting with each other for packaging, which, I've been ramping about that for 6 months, and I want people to actually start talking about that. Let's move on to more important things. Get the whole system in check and fixed. That's what needs to happen because the moviegoers, the TV watchers, the consumers are going to get hurt from everything that's going on here. All of this right here is, and that's why I do this podcast every week to call this out every time I see this kind of thing happen. But now, back to China. So, all right, Variety, you were quoted by following the box office smash with, man, I'll tell you what, being in China and seeing a book like Crazy Rich Asians get adapted and becoming the next big fat Greek wedding, man, you have to be lucky to say that happened. Opened everybody's mind to the fact that diversity in filmmaking is a wise thing to do, you said, not just creatively, but it's simply good business. And you've been providing English content at a Chinese moviegoer for a long time. Now you're going to start producing it. And now you got a 20-part TV series for U.S. TV about modern China, executive producing the upcoming feature film Empress about the first female ruler of China, Empress Wu. First of all, I love the fact there's like certain shows or certain programming that is a Chinese-related base. I think back in the day, like movies like Last Samurai, or my parents can always tell me about the TV series Shogun. They loved that series with Richard Chamberlain. And
Yep.
talk to me about what you gathered from the way a movie like Crazy Rich Asians broke the barrier, because now it's popular again. Now it's an interest again.
Well, about 4 years ago, almost 5 years ago, I was looking for a story that, again, after seeing Chinese milk in Iron Man, I said, there's got to be a better way. So I was looking for a story that I felt can kind of transcend that, was rooted in something Chinese, but a movie that I could do in English.
Yeah.
Using American-born Chinese, Canadian-born Chinese, because the accents are relatively the same. And when I told people back then that I wanted to do a feature film, with all Asians, they looked at me and said, "How are you out of your mind? That can never work." And, I just, being, not the smartest kid on the block, just didn't listen. And I found a book called Empress, about the first woman ruler of China. And when I read it, I said, this really, forget the fact that she was, a Chinese historical figure. This is a woman's struggle to make it a male-dominated society, if you just wanted to look for that common denominator. And I said, boy, is this a timely kind of thing. So we bought the rights to the book, and I brought in Ron Bass. Ron won the Academy Award for Rain Man, and he co-wrote Joy Luck Club. And I had Ron write it, and we took, 3 years to get the script to be what we want. We don't want somebody to look at this and go, this is Chinese history movie. No, it's about this woman. If you had to do it, it's the last emperor meets the king speech.
Yeah.
And it's like a real deep dive into this woman and what she went through to make it in that world. And so we're doing it as a feature film. Part of it will shoot in China and Xi'an. We'll shoot the exteriors. We'll probably shoot the interiors in Vancouver. It'll start, early next year. And, we think it's going to be, a major hit. And Crazy Rich Asians, once that came out, everybody kind of opened their eyes and said, oh my God, you were right. You can do it. And, so that's a fascinating project for me to work on, because most of my stuff has been TV and not features. And, this is quite a dramatic change for me. And it's fun, with the costuming and, in China, you just look at what could be done, even though some of the movies weren't great, like The Great Wall. I didn't think it was a great movie, but,
no.
You look at the scale of that movie and the thousands of extras and the costumes and stuff like that. And you say, boy, if you really had a good story in here, this could be fabulous,
Well,
so we bring the storytelling aspect to it.
And I don't understand why that movie, I watched the movie. Why was Matt Damon cast in it? I don't understand. I know he's a great actor. Doesn't make sense here.
It made no sense. When you looked at it, we looked at it and said, okay, you're starting with a bad idea. White boy goes to China to save them from the dragons.
Right.
Going, come on, that's such a stretch. And, Matt Damon, I heard, the numbers that I heard bandied around was he got paid $25 million for doing it.
Oh my God.
And, when I watched the movie, I could say, boy, it doesn't look like Matt's having a very good time making this movie.
No.
It must have been really tough to make that movie in China, at the, back then. And, and it really lacked story. The writing wasn't very good on that movie. The story didn't really hold together for me.
Right.
But again, you looked at the effects and you say, boy, the casting and the visuals and stuff, boy. And that's kind of where I saw the possibilities for the movie like Empress. Saying if I had a great story and I applied all those other things, I could have a great movie. And that's kind of where we're at with Empress now. We love the script, and it's just, anybody who reads it is just fascinated by it. It's just really deep dive into this woman and what was going through her head during that time.
Now, quick question on the casting of Empress. I don't know how old the character was supposed to be, but at this time, how old was this lady as the Emperor?
Well, in our movie, it kind of features on her, kind of at the age. It starts when she's a teenager and she moves into the palace and stuff like that. But most of it focuses she's somewhere between 27 and 30.
I'll tell you what. I mean, I don't know who you have casting for, but I mean, the one thing I did notice about The Great Wall, that the person that played the commander, Jing Chan, who's always playing along with Matt Damon, is kind of they were very close, and that was the person that was kind of the antagonist a little bit to his character, but was really trying to protect that whole kingdom there of the wall from the dragons. I thought she was fantastic in it. I always think someone of that kind of personality would fit a role like that, if that would work, because I really would be interested in who you cast in that lead role and who you put around that.
I know Jing for quite a while, and I'm friends with Jing's manager, and she is certainly someone we're considering.
Okay, yeah, everything there. I mean, I saw all that she's done. She was in dance, she did a film. She's beautiful, has great presence on camera. And I'm really curious. I will definitely go ahead and put a ticket down for this. I hope it gets a lot of release, and I would love to go and see that. Now, I want to go ahead and talk about the audience that you have, that you're trying to target, a young urban Chinese audience, and it's said to be the fastest growing consumer market in the world. So now, you're providing platforms on TV, film, online, and digital mobile devices. So obviously, you're hitting where that demographic can be found. So how is it different from the young urban demographic in the States? I mean, give me a little perspective on that audience you're trying to reach out to.
Sure. So, now probably 60% of our audience consumes what we do on mobile phones. We were surprised, when we first started, everybody wasn't getting it on a television set. They were watching on laptops, and we had to kind of make some changes based on that. And, that's kind of migrated now to the cell phone. More than half of the people who view our stuff are watching them on, a little 4 or 6 inch screen. So it's actually changed the way we do production. Our final edits, we don't do 50-inch TVs. We do on, iPhones. Just so we could look at the final product the same way the audience is probably going to look at the final product. And so we do a lot of that. We do, we've done a bunch of commerce where we've tied products integrated into the show, very subtly available for purchase after the show if you wanted to.
There you go.
The other thing we're doing, which is, it was one of these things that surprised us. We're doing a live event show called the Da Vinci Experience. It was a show we brought out of Milan.
Oh.
And we were going to do it in Beijing. We figured it would last 3 months. And it's kind of like one of those museum shows where you walk through and there's interactive things, and, always when you come out, you end up in the gift shop. And so we brought that to Beijing. We thought 3 months and then it'll be gone. And it ran 8 months in Beijing. We just moved it to Shanghai. And, it's one of these things where every parent of every kid is dragging their kid along, because it's not just entertaining and interactive, but it's educational. And, the aspiration of every Chinese parent is for their kid to go to Harvard or Stanford. And, so we like that stuff. These tend to be younger parents, and, you're starting to get this whole group of parents now who went to school in the West.
Uh-huh.
So, the older folks are cultural revolution, don't stand out, don't be different than anybody else, get a civil service job. The younger folks are entrepreneurs, and they're concerned about the environment and stuff like that, and they want their kids to be not just learn by rote memory, they want their kids to learn to be creative. So you're starting to see all those kind of industries develop there now, and that's who we work with. We hire very young folks. Most of the people who work for us go to USC, UCLA. They come and intern for us. They go back to China. They work in either Beijing or Shanghai. And they really do give us, this insight into the way that market is developing and stuff. And it's different. It's just different than the U.S. and in many ways. And just even when you design programming, for me, it's kind of refreshing, because I've now hit, my old age here, and in China, there's an immense respect for your elders.
Yes.
Which you don't get here, because people grow up with their grandparents. I mean, a typical Chinese kid their parents work, and you have two sets of grandparents that are raising a kid. So the communal family, the extended family is commonplace in China, and it's, you don't find it here. And, most of the time I think you find disrespect for your elders here, but you find incredible respect for your elders there. Well, which is kind of fun.
Yeah. I mean, it's interesting where, with a lot of American kids, there's an entitled society. It's been fostered here for several decades, going back to the millennials now that we have growing up today that are just not adapting very well. I mean, when you talk about in China and just other cultures as well, when they have the extended family, when it's very good nuclear family, a strong work ethic, morality, a lot of good instilled things are going on. I mean, that's why, everybody's is envious of China and the kind of people that come in to work in in America and just blow people away. I mean, it's just that. And to be able to put out quality. So also the thing is that, you're not going to be able to put out junk to this audience here and give them something they're not going to enjoy. Because if they're going to take the time to watch programming and consume it, they're going to want to watch something that's really good. And I would imagine, that's got to be the standard. You have to be able to put a very high standard on what you put out for those people.
Yeah, and because now now you can watch anything on demand on whichever device you want to. So the days back in the old cable days, you had it was a lot of default programming. People wouldn't find anything good on. They'd start thumbing through with the remote control, and then hopefully they found something they like, and they'd stop on and discover something new.
Yeah.
Now you don't have that anymore because there's always something good on. I record stuff and stream stuff and whatever. So I find myself not defaulting ever. I'm always watching something of very high quality. And if it's not a high quality, I go into something else that is. I look now at, the stuff that's, HBO and Showtime, more Netflix and Amazon and stuff.
Yeah.
The quality on this stuff is unbelievable. I don't think
totally.
People would say, "Well, that's not television." I'm going, "Yes, it is."
Yes, it is.
I don't care what screen you watch it on. It's still storytelling that you're doing on a screen. Who cares what size it is? And I just look at the stuff like I love that show Ozark on Netflix.
Oh, yeah.
The level of writing is just beyond anything I've ever seen.
Yeah, no, and like you said, give me anything from HBO or Showtime. I could just rattle off shows I love right now. Currently, give me shows like Billions or The Deuce or The Wire or Sopranos or Deadwood. Just pick it. There's so much good out there. And I'll tell you, it's, for me, there's great programming out there. Now, the one thing I hope for is that movies will continue to be in the theater, because I know people like the whole idea of staying at home for watching basically everything. But there is something to be said about me. When it's a feature film and it's an opening night for box office, I want to sit in the big theater with a crowd, get a nice big bag of popcorn and enjoy it and really just have the experience, because I grew up on it. I hope that doesn't go away. I feel like there's a lot of issues where, for whatever reasons, whether the reboots, relaunches, or just all these different obstacles that are in the way, less and less movies are getting into the movie theater. And I hope there's a way for more theaters to take on projects that might not make as much, but at least a place to be seen is most important. And at least for people to socialize and gather, but, asking for a lot, I guess. Now, you were recently awarded a Lifetime Achievement Award by the American Chinese CEO Society for your contribution to East-West cultural collaborations. Congratulations, first of all. Talk to me about the progress you've made to Western entertainment in China. What do you feel like you have left to accomplish in China or other places? I'm surprised if you've gone to China or Russia. I'm surprised India has not been on your map.
I did. I was on the board of a company in India, and I just found India personally, for me, was very hard to deal with. The level of poverty there, certainly I've been to other places where there's poverty, but, with the system there and the caste system and people being born into, the lower, form of society and never get out, and, you deform your kids so they could be a better beggar and stuff. Just emotionally, it just killed me for that year. You want to be more sensitive and say, gee, I wish I could help and all of that stuff. But just being there, I never really felt good. So that's kind of moved away from India. And, I hope there are things that people do to kind of help them, but that stuff just killed me. I couldn't deal with it. In China, probably, it's funny because when people always talk to me, oh, you did E and stuff. Well, quite honestly, I've done something in China that I'm actually more proud of than E. And I wrote a sitcom about the contradictions of modern Chinese life.
Yeah.
I wrote it in English, of course. And, it was really based on what happens when you have incredible economic growth in a very short period of time and people's social skills don't grow as quickly as their bank account. And, because I saw that in Russia and then I saw it in China and I still see it in China. And so I wrote this comedy and I gave it to our partner in Beijing, a woman named Jin Zhang, who's Chinese. And Jean says, I love the story. Can I show it to anybody? And I said, yeah. She goes, all right, we'll translate it and we'll take it to one of the TV stations. And, she comes back and says, oh, they love the story and they want to have, they asked if they could have dinner with the writer. So I set up a dinner for Tuesday, whatever. And I said, great. And, she comes with the guy and I understand enough Mandarin to understand where, he's looking at me, in disbelief and saying to her in Chinese, oh, no, I want to meet the writer. This is a white guy.
Yeah.
And, I'm going, really? You think so? He goes, oh, no, I don't, no disrespect. He goes, but I never thought that the story was written by anybody other than a Chinese person because of the insight that it, had into, this issue, which really troubles us, in China. And he goes, but at the end of the day, he goes, we're Chinese government television, which means Communist Party. And I can't put on, something from a writer from America. And I said, oh, okay, whatever. And, he called back like 2 weeks later and said, listen, I took this story to the propaganda department and they have, they call the propaganda department what we used to call standards and practices here in the U.S. And they said, oh, yeah, we know who he is and he's okay. But we love the message of this story because it was really not everything which is good. It was not material, it was just, you need to find that balance in life, which is what the story really focused on. And not everything, city was good and rural was bad and stuff like that. And he said, I got permission to do it. And he said, great. And, the show ended up running 70 episodes, 70.
Wow.
And, just incredible. And then it got nominated as the best comedy in the at the Asian Awards, which are in Singapore.
Like their Emmys. Award. Yeah. Uh-huh.
And what was bizarre to me, it was the only sitcom from China that was nominated.
Oh,
and
wow.
when you think about it, it's the funniest TV show in China is written by a New York Jew.
Well, Norman Lear did that for a long time, right? I guess the same kind of neighborhoods, right? So let's go figure.
And, so that kind of thing, I look at that and go, wow, I wrote a comedy for a culture that I didn't grow up in a language I don't really speak. And it's like so popular. And, that was amazing for me, and just, you have those moments every once in a while. To me, people will marvel at the E thing. And, and again, it was great. Don't get me wrong. But to me and Alan, it was so logical. When people said to us, they go, well, when did you know it was going to be successful? And you go, the minute we had the idea. It just, people love that kind of stuff. How hard was it to figure that out? Figuring out how to write a comedy in Chinese is a whole other thing.
But here's the thing: there's got to be something in the water, or whatever it is. Because you could also list a laundry list of great Jewish comedy producers. When you think Genji Cohan or Chuck Lorre or Larry David, or just something about that collective area, that something there where you just have the right kind of funny, and to able to translate it over there. I got to tell you this too. Yes, I understand where you're coming from about why the work in China somewhat supplants what you did with the E channel, but the E channel got you to go ahead and make that jump over, step over, and do that skipping stone over to go to China to be able to get into this kind of work and to really just, what a market to be a part of and to do what you did. So I would never, I understand where China, obviously the legacy is definitely there, but I still say there's something to be said about what the E! Channel's done. Because for me, it is the blueprint, well, like I said, of what I think any kind of television could be done today. Done on the cheap, efficient, like a well-oiled machine, and you're able to procure young, quality, presentable talent, and they know what they're doing. You can't find an MC anymore because the kind of programming that was out there to present MCs are not there anymore because you can't find it. I mean, we can't. I mean, look at how they had a problem with the Oscars this year. Besides the fact that, what they did with Kevin Hart, which was an outrage in itself. But, okay, they didn't even bother putting a host out there. What other shows are not going to have hosts? Because for any show that you have, especially any kind of, reality show, game show, anything like that, who are you going to have hosting these things? Nobody's there. So it's that and, thinking outside of the box and being, like you said, a bit radical and just not giving a shit and just, they're coming to you. You don't have to placate. You ran by your own rules and your team did that. And that I commend tremendously. I think it's a role model for me of what you did.
Yeah, thank you.
And I think the way you went to China, why not? Because nobody else, who else was going to do that and make that step forward? That's what I'm saying. Larry, I thank you for taking this time to come out and join me for this program today. I've learned, I've taken so much out of this. I enjoy it. And I'm not going to put the pat on the back, but I'm just saying, I really wanted to go and learn about all that you did behind the scenes and obviously just the stuff you did in China. I know there's money to be made out there. It's just how do you make it and how do you get that market to, be able to do the content, work with the right people and to make your way in. You did it. And it's amazing the kind of stretch you've done. And there should be more people to talk about it. I don't know. Hollywood could learn a lot more from what you did, what you and Alan and what you've been doing with your team at Metan for all these years. Hollywood needs to learn a lot about what's going on here, what's been done here. That's where I'm coming from.
So, thank you so much.
So, Larry, thank you again, co-founder of E! Entertainment Television and founding partner of Metan Global Entertainment Group. Real quickly for our listeners, if they want to keep in touch with you, I don't know if you connect their social media or if there's anything else besides the project we mentioned, if there's anything else you want to make mention that people should know and keep a lookout for.
Yeah, well, I'm incredibly accessible. I'm on Facebook and I have an Instagram and a Twitter and all that, stuff there. And I post my own Facebook stuff. And,
nice.
And stuff. So, people could generally find me there. I try and answer just about all the contacts that are made in some way. A lot of times I can't help, people are asking me how to get a program on E! And I'm going, good luck. I don't do that anymore. Come to me with something in Mandarin, we can talk. I'm pretty easy to find. So
fantastic. So I really do appreciate you coming on and joining me and doing that. I just followed you on Facebook myself, so I hope all of you do the same. And by all means, I hope, if there's a chance to go and come on back, I'd love to hear about the backstory, just how you got yourself, came from Brooklyn, made it all the way up. And, we'll definitely, if there's a chance to get you on back, I'd love to do that. But thanks for making time for this. I really do appreciate it.
All righty. Take care now.
Sure. You too. All the best.
Bye.
Thanks again, Larry. Bye-bye.